And welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues podcast. I'm joined once again by Harry. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. I've just about recovered, not from the City game, but from the intense interactions I've had on X this week regarding my comments on Jared Branthwaite being injured, which I know we'll get into. But yeah, I've just about recovered. I feel like I dug myself a hole that was too deep to get out of, sadly. So I had to kind of wave a white flag in the end. But yeah, otherwise, all good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I mean, it's always a good sign when if I see you on my private account going around on Everton Twitter quite a bit with the interactions. That definitely means you've caused a little bit of a ripple in the interaction. So yeah, as you
That's what
say,
we're
well,
aiming for.
yeah, it's definitely, as you say, we'll definitely get into precisely why that is, and maybe restart the discourse once again, perhaps with what you go on to say in this one. But we'll start with Manchester City, and I think we spoke about this game last week previewing, and I think to be honest, if you'd asked me to like describe in detail what I think was going to happen in that game, I think I probably could have predicted about 90% of that, if I'm honest. I thought we'd have a few good chances in the first half that we'd look back on and think, oh, that we really should have done better with that. Um,
Yeah.
while City kind of struggled to like break us down for a while. And then second half, well, the legs will start to tire, we'll slip up a little bit, and Haaland will punish us. And that's pretty much exactly how it went down. I think it's pretty much a carbon copy of a couple of years ago when I went and we lost 2-0 and Haaland scored with I think there were only two shots on target during the game. So yeah, it's pretty much a carbon copy of that. Pretty, I'd say, predictable game that lived up
Yeah.
to expectations. Yeah, do you think similar?
Yeah, do you know what? I never really know what to feel or think when we play the big boys, as it were, particularly in Man City, because you kind of feel with a Man City, if they're the Man City that are firing and like competing for a treble, you know that you're going to struggle. But actually for Everton, if they're the Man City that are like haven't won in 5, 6 games and Guardiola's got like scars on his face, that we're also probably still going to struggle. I think we've been able to frustrate them quite well at key moments in recent years, like that. Was it the 1-1 under Lampard that kind of springs to mind, and things like that, where we were in sort of a bit of a rotten run and managed to get something from it? I think Dyche got a 0-0 from them last year, maybe, if I'm remembering that correctly too. I might be totally wrong, actually, or choosing to remember it that way. But yeah, I think it was a very predictable game, mate. I think you can always kind of gauge how predictable a game is by the reaction on social media. And I think actually everyone there was just this sort of lukewarm acceptance to what had happened at the weekend. I think it's also interesting, isn't it, that in the light of a 2-0 defeat, the social media of the football club as well has been very focused on Pickford saves and Iliman Ndiaye's incredible skill that we're just seeing more and more on like a weekly basis now. He seems to be just growing into a really, really good player that we kind of always knew he was, but I think he's just showing it so consistently now. We talked on the pod last week about where that leaves us with him and how long he's with the club, etc. But to be able to sit here after a 2-0 defeat against arguably one of the title contenders this season and say, do you know what, like, write it off. It was a bit of a free hit. I would just say the only thing that still really gets to me, and we'll get into it probably with the team selection stuff for Spurs, is Beto again. I feel like this is like last year it was like Deitch again, and this year it's like Beto again. Like we always have our like pantomime villain, don't we? But yeah, that miss and kind of off the back of it almost being like a shot for shot remake of the one that he missed in the international break that we all kind of chose to ignore. But yeah, it's this team is so well built apart from the strikers. And I think we could have a really interesting debate on this podcast and indeed other Everton forums on if you were allowed to sign one player in January or one position in January, do you go right back or do you go striker? And what one is going to give more value and allow Everton to progress and kind of hit the heights that they want to hit. and we go in waves, don't we? Sometimes it's like, well, Jacob Bryan's doing all right at right back, so we'll go ahead and get a 10 goal a season striker. And then there are other games where Beto does what Beto does, and you're like, well, forget everyone else, we need a striker. I think I'm increasingly more in the we need a striker and just somebody that's going to be able to capitalize on these chances that we create. I don't think Beto's it, and I've the weeks go by, man, and the Barry thing and sort of Barry merging into it's almost like Scooby-Doo, like take off Barry's mask and it will be Moise Keane under there. So I don't know, mate. Yeah, I think aside from the striking performances, I think being without Jack Grealish and still playing some really attractive football was promising. And Jordan Pickford for shipping 2 goals, the number of chances that he stopped as well. I think he's just such a good player, goes under the radar so much. But yeah, predictable, mate. And it takes some positives from it. We'll move on and look ahead to the weekend. But it was always going to be a bit of a free hit, wasn't it?
Yeah, that absolutely. I think, as you say, we're picking the positives out of a game like this, which I think, as you say, definitely says that it wasn't a humiliation and one that we just all want to completely eradicate from our memory. People will remember just how well Njai played in that game, even if it was a defeat. So yeah, that as you say, that definitely takes takes away some of the gloom from the whole situation. Um, yeah, obviously, you've raised an interesting point there about where the team currently is at the moment, and I think obviously with the Jared Brantford news, which I guess is the best time to bring this up, really, with this being announced this week. As I said, that's definitely the biggest blight on our week, rather than the City
Yeah,
result. Absolutely, that's what a lot more people are focusing on in a much more negative light at the moment. The fact that he's probably not going to be ready at least until the new year. I think from what I'm seeing with the having the operation, which has apparently gone well. Um, but yeah, is obviously going to keep him out of action for quite a while, and it's one of them where, in hindsight, when he got injured in the summer, probably should have been the time to pull the trigger then, but they thought they'd wait it out, and it's obviously backfired. And that obviously has opened up a lot of questions because I think for most of this season, everyone's kind of been like, we're nearly there. If you get Brantford
yeah,
back in this team, it might really start to click for us. But obviously, that's now going to be held off. And obviously, once Brentford does potentially come back into the side at the earliest possible date, we're probably going to be in the middle of AFCON as well, which is already going
yeah,
to disrupt our side. So it might very well be the case that we're not going to see our best team on the pitch until at least February time, which is pretty alarming to think, and is obviously leading a lot of people to say, well, we need to capitalise in the transfer market on January, or as well, we probably should have done more in the summer as well, which is,
yeah,
is obviously going to rear its head again. Um, yeah, I think where I'm at is that the team definitely isn't there yet. Definitely a lot more. It's a lot more functional than it was last season. Obviously, with Deitch going back to Forest this week, there's obviously been a lot of reflection, shall we say, on his time at Everton as well, and
yeah,
the football we were playing under him, and yeah, obviously it is very very different now. We've come a long way, I think, in the time. Less than a year ago, Deitch was our manager. It's quite mad to think, I'd say. Um, and yeah, the fullback situation is definitely a massive worry. Um, and yeah, I think with the striker situation, I am very much at the point that I kind of have been for a few weeks now, but it just gets more and more strong every week that I don't see the point in starting Beto as often as we do and giving Beto as
yeah,
much time on the pitch as we do. Um, I do honestly think there's a lot less to lose by just giving Barry a proper run in the team and just seeing how he gets on. I think there's only positives that can be taken from it. He either stays where he is, or he like really improves and his confidence starts to improve. And I think that works better for Beto as well. A bit of a tongue twister there,
yeah,
but I think Beto is better when he's got a point to prove. And I think there's a few times he's come off the bench this season, and they've probably been his better performances for us. When he starts from the off, he really struggles to get involved. But by coming on against tired legs in the second half, where defenders are just like, oh, I cannot be asked being bullied by this fella for the last 20 minutes or so. I think he's he's got a much better role to play in our team, in that sense. And it's mad.
Yeah.
I think last season we were all like, "Our better needs to be starting more rather than coming off the bench." But I think that was a different situation with Calvert-Lewin up front, and I do think that Barry can kind of do that sort of role for us better, and offer a little more in the build-up play than Beto does. Beto really doesn't get involved in that too much, and it's mostly just any sort of loose ball he can get onto, like in the final third, is kind of where he works on. Whereas Barry can get it linked up a lot more and stuff. So I would absolutely just be giving Barry a go now, and I'm saying it for the last few weeks, and I'm just hoping it'll finally start to get through for Moyes as well. That it's just a better situation for us, I think. And I think a lot of people are writing him off based on very little play from him so far.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
any player who gets taken off at half time pretty much every time he starts, I think it's gonna wreck their confidence in any way. But with that said, I still think the fullbacks are a much more priority position for me. And obviously it's something that the club were looking at in the summer and just couldn't quite find the right player. I think if I'm being brutally honest, it's probably going to be quite difficult for us to find the right player in January, a lot harder than it was in the summer. So I'm not entirely sure if that's going to get addressed this summer, but it might just be a case that a more conventional right back coming in rather than someone like Jake O'Brien, who can now be focused more in the middle. We might just pull the trigger on that one if someone becomes available.
Yeah, I think the thing that's going to help us massively, and this is the thing that I kind of hope with the striking situation as well in January, is it's a World Cup year. There's a lot of players that aren't currently playing as regularly for their club as they'd like. And this is where a club like Everton, with gaping holes in certain positions, does become advantageous. Also helped by the way that this season Everton aren't in a relegation scrap. Like they've players don't have to come to Everton and try and keep us up. They're coming to us to help us kick on. It's a very different proposition at Everton this season. I would expect that the reason that we've left loan slots available both domestically and internationally is that they will look to loan players into those positions. I particularly in the striking role out, I don't think they're going to commit more money to a striker with Beto and Barry still on the books. I think they'll look at, there's the Jesus links there, there's the Richarlison links there that we're seeing in like the rumour mill right now. There's probably legs to both of those, to be perfectly honest, given that they both want to play for Brazil in the World Cup. They want to sort of get goal sharp again. Yeah, it might be a bit too early to get into sort of the rumor mill, but I wouldn't mind a Jesus. I think he's probably another sort of Grealish-esque, could revive his career a little bit on loan at Everton. But we'll see that obviously we're still a few months away from that. I do think, with the going back to the Branthwaite thing a little bit, I, I I'm sort of a bit the opposite to you. I think the striking role is just still so much more important than the right back role. I think Jacob Bryan's maybe looked a little bit out of position more so this season, but I think everyone has had flaps and wobbles this season, and I think it's probably like 9 times out of 10, I think he'll be okay there. At the moment, get ready, Al, because this is where the comments are going to erupt on the video. I think we're set up a little bit how Liverpool was set up last season, in the sense that Salah was their outlet, but not their striker. Like he was their main goal threat, but not their striker. And I think this season that's Everton, is that Njai is our main goal threat, but he's not our striker. And we're not talking about playing him through the middle. And so in that sense, Barry is better than Beto, because we talked about early on in the season, Barry is the one that off the ball is pulling players out of position and then creating that space. And if that is the way we're going to play currently without an additional striker, then Barry is better than Beto. Beto doesn't handle that situation of pulling players, or he's a handful, but he's kind of in the wrong place, right? He's in the right place for a striker, but not he's the wrong place to let this creative outlet behind the striker score goals. So I think, yeah, Barry, I'd like to see Barry start going into this run that we've got heading towards AFCON. AFCON is such a big worry. I sort of said on Twitter or on X this week, I didn't mention it in my video about Branthwaite on the YouTube channel, but AFCON is such a big headache for us with losing Ghana and losing Ndiaye. I think we Does Dibbling coming there when Njai goes to AFCON, probably who comes in for Ghana? Like, is it Roll? Is it, there's such an element here of what will David Moyes do? Because AFCON will come before we can bring anyone of kind of substance in to that squad, really. And this is why, if you looked at Garner, James Garner, this is going to right back and giving O'Brien a bit of a move centrally, or having him out of the team for a bit, whatever. That's only temporary, because with Branthwaite being injured, overlapping with AFCON as we think it will, there's three huge holes in that team that are going to need plug in before Everton can sign another player. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's got to get comfortable with it. Sort of feels a bit like he's got 10 of his best 11, or his best available 11 decided, and the Barry and Beto thing is the one question mark. And I think it's probably the first time in his managerial tenure at Everton, in both spells, where he's probably had two strikers of the same level, probably not a great level, by the way, but like the same level. And who does he pick? Because usually we were always down to the bare bones. Like last season, Beto's best form came when there was literally no one else available. And now it's like, well, if Moyes gets cold feet on Beto, he can swap him at half time for Barry, and vice versa. And that's what we're seeing. And that is creating this. I don't think it's good for either of them, right? I don't think we're the first Everton outlet to say that, by the way. But yeah, I do just think he's got to stick now, like, and stick to his convictions. And even if he put Barry in now against Tottenham, and he goes on a goalless run until January, but he starts every game, he gets 70 minutes every game, I'd almost kind of prefer moaning about that, rather than like moaning that we're seeing 45-minute bursts of both strikers and neither of them doing much.
Yeah, that's the bit I don't understand because yeah, but Barry seems to get pulled at half time every time he starts, whereas Beto usually gets 70 odd minutes. Um, And I often think, I especially noticed it against Palace, and obviously, fair play, the subs did work out that time. I don't think Beto did too much that game, but I think him and Alcaraz have a good little partnership going, to be fair. I think Alcaraz plays better with Beto in front of him, and vice versa, so it kind of works out. But I actually thought Barry was one of our better players in that first half, and I couldn't understand how he got brought off at half time. And then, say, in a game last week against City, where I thought Beto was just pretty much anonymous throughout the game. He gets like 70 odd minutes to play. So yeah, that's the bit that really compounds it. If they're both getting 70 odd minutes, then that's fair enough. That's usually what most teams do if they have to kind of strike a rotation going on, which we do at the moment. Um, and yeah, okay, moving to the rest of the start, and obviously we'll get on to. Obviously, there's been quite a bit of talk about how our team's maybe going to change in the next few weeks because it's an interesting one because I think Tarkowski's starting to look a lot more solid for me in the last few weeks. He had a bit of a shaky start to the season, and obviously, a lot has been said about just how well Michael Keane's played at the moment. Probably the strongest run in his Everton career, I'd probably say. Just looks more and more solid each week, weighing in with a goal or two here and there. But there's still that worry of them two playing together, I think. And it's not even so much the case of like Tarkowski playing badly next to him. It's just more the fact that the two of them are just a bit too similar to me. And we still try and play in the same way, where I think it's usually Keane doing the Brantford kind of role, where we try and nick the ball high up the pitch. Um, like when we're like coming in behind the strikers and try and like get into that transition. And if we miss it, we can usually rely on Brantford being able to get back and it not costing us too much. But Keane's just not quick enough to do it, and obviously neither is Tarkowski next to him. Be interested to see if Jake O'Brien could do that role because again, a lot of people have said that that's probably what we're going to have to end up doing. Like, because I don't know if we can stick with Tarkowski and Keane until the new year without it really costing us. And O'Brien seems to be a lot more physically gifted, I'd say, than Michael Keane. Quicker on his feet, better acceleration on him. So it's possible that he can maybe come in and do that role for one of the two. I'd imagine it would still probably be Michael Keane, to be honest. And O'Brien and Keane together worries me a tiny bit, but but yeah, I'd imagine that's what we're going to end up doing. But of course, that opens up a whole new debate about what you do at right back. And I think before, like I said, this is all talking about what I do or what a fan would do. I think it's a completely different question of what Moyes would do because it involves a lot of putting faith in players in different positions that they're not quite used to playing at the moment. And the specific one, of course, is Merlin Roll. And I worry a tiny bit about this. I'm seeing a bit of a similar pattern with how people are viewing Roll at the moment, in that we've seen him make, I think, two sub appearances so far, and people are starting to say, "Oh, he looks really good at him. I'm really liking the look of him." And I have the feeling that the first game he starts for us, it's not going to be the same situation, and suddenly it's going to completely flip on its head, because we have a tendency to do this where we get a little glimpse of a player, and we either rave about him or completely write him off straight away, and it's never ever the case after what two sub appearances that Rolls had. I think we saw the similar with Ibaboon last season when he first came into the side. People were raving about him. Then once he started to start a little bit more regularly, like in Christmas, he started to look really like a bit more shaky, a bit more the sort of player we were more expecting to see. But that made him a lot worse. And I think it's one of
Yeah.
the cases where no one has a clue what level Will is at yet for us. Um, and obviously, if he comes into the midfield and looks really solid for us, then that makes it a bit more of a viable option of James Garner moving to right back. But then again, of course, as you say, once Idrissa Gay comes out to the side, then what do you do then? Do you start in with Boonham and Wells together? That's such an unknown
Oh,
proposition to
yeah.
us at the moment. So yeah, there's a awful lot of questions that have to be considered. And I'm not entirely sure how much our team's actually going to change. To be honest, I'm not
No.
sure if Moyes is going to be. He's not the type to gamble, is he? Even though we're in a much more comfortable position now, where we probably could gamble. And just quickly while I'm getting it all out, like I'll hand over to you, and you can go through all of these kind of little dilemmas I'm posing at you. But I just also want to say that um, in addition to the Barry thing as well, Diblin needs to be given more of a go, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
And yeah, so I've got my spiel out. You go ahead
No,
now
I
and
think
say,
but there's so much validity in what you're saying now. Honestly, there is. I think what you've said towards the end of that, I think could make this podcast rather short, and it would also probably satisfy our friends that I was exchanging with on X this week, is that I don't think David Moyes will change a lot, and I think it will be quite like for like, plug the hole that becomes the hole. So I think if at the moment Keane's playing well, Tarkowski's getting his form back, I think Keane and Tarkowski stay as the centre back pairing. I think with that in mind, then O'Brien stays at right back, and we accept that he has good games and not so good games. I think right now, when you've got everyone fit, I said this earlier, 10 of the 11 positions on that pitch right now are locked in. And I think when you lose one, it'll be that he'll just plug that gap. So I think when AFCON comes, Diblin probably will get more of a run. It'll be that like for like in for Njai. I think the same with Idrissa Gana Gay. That one has a little bit more of a question mark over it of, is it Roll? Is it Irabunum? Like, yeah, is that what? Because I can't see any of these things causing Moyes to change formation. I can't see him suddenly going elaborately and playing Beto and Barry, for example, and then making it more like a 4-4-2. I don't see that happening. He's got his system, it's working well enough right now. There's this sort of allowance from the fan base that, Branthwaite isn't there, or like we don't have that fully fit squad, like the starting 11 that he wants to field. So there will just be allowances made by doing that approach. So in that sense, I'm kind of this mindset. I don't expect it to change. I can't see a situation where, yeah, like if O'Brien tucked in with anyone, it would be Tarkovsky, but that damages Keane so much. We've seen it, by the way, before. If Keane is called upon, it's a little bit like it's like microwaving a lasagna. Like it looks ready and then it's like cold in the middle and it doesn't. It's just not good. It's not good. It's not what you wanted. And I feel like that's Michael Keane right now. Michael Keane is piping hot lasagna, which is great. But if we take him out, if we take him off again, we've got to reheat him, and that's a problem, right? So I think he's going to stick with what he's got, and I think he's going to keep O'Brien there. I, yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't think it will be mass changes. I don't even think with the busier fixture schedule coming up here over the winter, I don't think it will change so much. Like we're not in the Carabao Cup anymore. Obviously, not got to worry about games in the FA Cup until January. He's got a very sort of solid run where he can just kind of stick to what he knows. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, mate. To be honest, like I think that's kind of where I'm at. I could play fantasy football. I could play Football Manager on this and kind of really go into what I'd like to see. I do also very much agree with two other points that you made. I think the Merlin role thing, it's like just enjoy him in his flashes of brilliance right now. And let's just like, and then if he does come into the starting 11 when AFCON starts, let's not go, well, that's not the same player that was played 7 minutes against Man City, like, you know, when they were all knackered. And the same for Dibbling, by the way, as well. You think about the prospect of Tyler Dibbling coming in right now for Iliman and Jai and getting any real game time on that side of the pitch with the form that Iliman Jai is in right now. And even when he goes to AFCON, Tyler Dibbling coming into that role, just like patience, understanding, like and again, it's helped a little bit this season because we're not having to scrap and fight for every single point, for every goal. So I think there is a little bit more patience from the fans. But if this looks like a season where we could somehow sneak a top half finish or could somehow sneak a Europa Conference League spot come the end of the season, that's where I think the patience will run out again. Is like when, oh, well, we should have done this or we could have done that. I think right now there is patience because we're not looking down and we're just sort of looking at where do these squad problems cause us a glass ceiling in terms of how far can we push on this season. But yeah, I think very much it'll be business as usual. I know we'll probably get into what we think our starting lineup is for Spurs. I wouldn't anticipate too many changes, too many out of the ordinary shouts from David Moyes, because that's what we know and love him for is stubbornness and consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we could very well be in a season now where we had a manager who was a bit more willing to experiment, perhaps, but who knows how beneficial that actually would be for this group of players right now. Maybe a bit of, as you say, bit of familiarity while not having that pressure of having to perform now might actually be
Mm,
good for some of these players. That's it. With the Dibbling thing, I think. The only thing for me is that he should be getting longer off the bench, I think, because we see it often
yeah.
that as good as Njai is, he gets tired very easily. It's a perfect opportunity. Like, Moyes loves making subs around the hour mark. Um, and obviously we haven't had many games where we're very comfortable at that position. But say if we're 1 or 2 goals up, can't see that happening on Sunday, by the way, like straight away. But like if with some of these games coming up, if we're like ahead at a point of the hour mark, giving Diblin half an hour in that right wing role could do him wonders, especially in a
Yeah.
game, as I say, where we're comfortable. There's no pressure to come in and perform, and it might just allow him to play his own game a little bit more. He's looked a little in himself, I think, so far when he's played, a little too nervous to try things and it not come off. Um, but that's all confidence at such a young age. I'm sure that will come. Um, but yeah, I'm completely with you. I can't see the team changing much at all. Um, I think maybe a potential thing we maybe look at in the midfield is try and Dewsbury Hall a bit further back, and
Yeah.
that might be what we look to do in going into AFCON perhaps, and Alcaraz playing in that further forward role potentially. But as you say, I can't see that happening anytime soon, and that might be something that's tried a little bit going into December maybe. But yeah,
See,
let's go on.
yeah, I was just gonna say, it feels like I know I'm probably arguing against myself here, but it feels like there is that sort of like locked in system right now. But I would say the sort of the core of that system is the three behind the striker, right? And obviously last week we didn't have that because Grealish couldn't play. The week before that, Dewsbury Hall was suspended. So that, but where possible, like those are the first, aside from Pickford, those are the first three names on that team sheet are Grealish on the left and Jai on the right, Dewsbury Hall in the middle in that 10 role. And he won't want to compromise on that until he absolutely has to. Like the rest of it can change around it. Like we know the back four is relatively makeshift right now. It actually has been since he came in because O'Brien's not in his position that he wants to play. Like the two holding midfielders, I think we know that Garner and Garner are like our two best in that option, like with the options we've got available right now. But I would also say we know with AFCON that will have to change. We know sometimes James Garner's pulled into one of the wing back positions, but that three behind the striker is kind of like his all of his firepower this season, and he's not going to want to play around with that now that he knows that Njai can play on that other side. So, yeah, I think he's sort of locked in on those three. Everything else is semi-negotiable. But you raise a good point. Like there will come a time, I think, where Dewsbury Hall's probably going to have to play one or two games a bit deeper, and hopefully he plays as well in a deeper role as he does in the role he's being asked to play right now. Because if so, then we might not have as big of a worry with losing Idrissa Gana Gueye for AFCON.
Yeah, that's it. And just on Dewsbury Hall as well, I think he said in the week about the City game that he was a bit disappointed with his performance and not been quite getting as involved as he would have liked. And not to knock him too much, but I do agree, and that it's this is
Mm,
meant much more as a compliment towards him. I've noticed it a few times this season, I think, and it's probably to do with the way we play a little bit as well, as you say. A lot of our stuff goes through Grealish and Njai out on the wings, and it sometimes leaves Dewsbury Hall a little bit uninvolved and not quite as involved as he'd like. But I like the fact he's recognised that. I think that's a good thing, um,
yeah,
and I think it could be a case, especially against Tottenham, where. Um, I think it's going to be a combative midfield battle. I think going into Sunday, I think it could very well be that if he is to have a good game, that will be very important for us and could be the difference maker.
yeah.
And so yeah, as you say, the starting lineup pretty much picks itself, doesn't it? As you said, the only debate, as it is every single week, is who starts up front. But I'd like to think we're a bit aligned on this one going into this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both saying Barry over Beto, right? A little bit of pace, offers a little bit more off the ball. And as you rightly said as well, like thinking about how you deploy the other one, and Beto is the better of the two currently at coming off the bench and making an impact. So yeah, I think Barry would be my starter up top.
Mm. And as you say, I completely agree about that. That three behind the striker, I think we really do play into that. And I like the fact that similar to the Moyes of old, I think we do have a reinvigoration about us at home now with the new ground. I think we're going at teams a lot more at home than we are away at the moment. And I
Yeah,
think especially with that bank of three behind the striker, I do always think we give ourselves a chance of getting something at home. So I think, and yeah, I think with Barry in front of them like that, that this could be a game where he really like comes into his own. It's very hopeful thinking because Spurs are a very good side, but having played in the week and I'm already starting to see a little bit of unrest around Thomas Frank, to be honest, among some Spurs fans. So it might be a case that we catch them on a bad day on Sunday. So I'm not feeling as negative about it as maybe I should do, to be honest. Yeah, we'll go into predictions now just before we wrap up
yeah,
with the lineup quiz. But I think my head says a draw. Head says maybe 1-1, but I could see us nicking this one. Maybe another last minute winner from Barry to really get himself going. Yeah,
nice.
that'd probably be the dream, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You know, Ange Postecoglou is no longer the Spurs manager, and I feel like I never really hear anything about Tottenham this season. They're kind of going along pretty quietly, aren't they? I read some notes from David Moyes' press conference on the Everton app, and it had kind of our injury concerns, Branthwaite, Patterson. Aside from that, pretty much clean bill of health. And then looked at Spurs' injury list, big names missing from that Spurs team, and a few bigger names that are on like the sort of unsure whether they'll feature list as well. And as you rightly said, played in midweek. I think I'll go ahead here and say 1-1. I I think that we could go and get something from this game. I think David Moyes, any team that David Moyes sees as a big team or as a threat now to being the first team to win at the Hill Dickinson, I think he'll go slightly negative. I know what you're saying about attacking teams more at home, but yeah, I think he'll kind of take a draw. I think we all would possibly take a draw from this one. I'll go 1-1. I hope I'm wrong and I hope we go ahead and nick it. Like you say, a last minute winner again would be delightful.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, so we'll wrap up with the lineup quiz. It's your turn this week. I'm asking the game, and I've changed it up a tiny bit because it's usually kind of a like for like fixture in terms of it being
Mm,
if we're playing at home, I pick a home game, but I've changed the logic up a little bit in that I've gone for our first game at Tottenham's new stadium, as obviously it's going to be Tottenham's first
Okay,
game at our new stadium. And I think
nice.
in my not so biased opinion, I think theirs is the only ground that can hold a candle to ours in the Premier League now, especially among
Yeah,
the modern
would
ones.
agree. Yeah.
Um, I won't say which one's better because Spurs fans will come after me if they watch this. But yeah, so this was the final day of the 2018-19 season, and I'll hold my hands up and admit I did not watch a minute of this game because this was the City Liverpool final day, the first one of those when it went down to the final day with the title and City won down at Brighton. So all my focus was on that. We had nothing to play for. So finishing a 2-2 draw. And yeah, final day of 18-19 season, Marco Silva's first season. When you're ready, please.
Mate, oh man. That is, do you know, that's absolutely baffled me that we're talking about Marco Silva's first season and that was the first game in Tottenham Stadium. Tottenham Stadium still feels so much newer
Mm,
than that. Man, and now my brain is completely gone because I'm like, I'm almost kind of questioning here. Koeman was after Silva. No, Silva was after Koeman.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, Silva was after Koeman. Okay, right. I'm going Pickford in goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, this is rough. I'll go Michael Keane at centre back.
Michael Keane played, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Calvert-Lewin. Oh, gotta go Calvert-Lewin.
He's not in the team
He's
somehow.
not.
Must have been injured. So that's a life
Oh,
lost
who'd have thought
already.
that never happened to him, did it? Okay.
Must have been, yeah.
Goodness me. Okay, so I'll go Richarlison.
Richarlison is also not in the side.
What's going on here? This is awful.
That's very unlucky though. Like that those
Oh
two
wow.
aren't featuring at all.
God,
Again,
what?
must have been an injury. Um,
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so I'll go Mina.
Mina started, yeah. That's
Good.
two.
Wow.
Three,
Okay.
I should
Good.
say.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. I'll go Luca Digne.
Luca Dean, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Coleman at right back.
Ah, I knew you'd say that. Coleman is
Oh,
also not in the side, so blimey, you've crashed out at the
that was
defense.
early.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if anyone can remember this game too well, but the formation is baffling me because I can only assume that Michael Keane is at right back, and
That's
this
horrifying.
was the prime Son days as well, so that just seems like suicide from us.
Yeah.
Um, but the defense is made up of Michael Keane, Yerry Mina, Luca Dean at left back, and Kurt Zuma's in there as well. This is Kurt Zuma's
Okay.
loan spell
Yeah.
season, so his final game for us. So. Either we played a very weird three at the back formation, but I can't work out who would have been at right wing back.
Mm.
But yeah, so we'll go for the rest of the side here. Morgan Schneidlin, everyone's favourite, uh, next to Idrissa Gueye, still going strong, of course. Theo Walcott, um, he who must not be named, Gylfi Sigurdsson,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and Bernard, and then Cenk Tosun up front. Walcott and Tossen, the scorers in this game, by the way.
Wow.
Two of the most polarized figures at Everton at that moment in time. So yeah, that's a pretty crazy one. And then just to finish off with the bench as usual, Stecklenburg, Jagielka, he came on. This is his final ever Everton game. John Joe Kenny. The fact we potentially started with Michael Keane at right back over John Joe Kenny, I
Yeah.
think
Tells
says
you
it
what you need
all.
to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Leighton Baines, Andre Gomez, Tom Davis, and Adamola Lookman. I had a very Marco Silva
Uh,
side that.
there you go.
Um,
Yeah. Wowee.
but yeah, I've clearly caught you out a little bit there with that one.
100%. Yeah.
You were on a
100%.
really good run going into that one, and yeah, that's kind of upset the form a little bit. But yeah, we'll finish off on that. So yeah, thanks once again for joining me, mate.
Yeah. No
Uh,
worries, man.
yeah, please leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Comment below giving your thoughts ahead of this one and what you do with the team. I'm sure you're a lot more experimental than Moyes is probably going to be. Subscribe to the Toffee Boost channel for more Everton content, and we will see you in the next one. Up the Toffees.